Hi everyone, Jim here. I want to talk today about what to take on a bike ride. Let's talk about it. Okay, so a few weeks ago I did my first group ride of the season, and we did about a 20-mile trip between Ypsilanti, Michigan and Ann Arbor, Michigan. And there was a group of about a dozen of us. And on our way back to Ypsilanti, one of the guys at the back of the group got a flat tire. This happens. Unfortunately, he didn't have anything with him to change the tire, and a couple of people stayed back to try to help him, and they just couldn't come up with the things needed to fix his tires. So a bunch of us ended up getting back to the brewery where we started, and one of the guys went out with his truck and picked the guy up and brought him back. As we were sitting around at the brewery having a few beers afterwards, though, it kind of came up, one of the guys asked me what I would normally take on a bike ride. And I thought this would be a good idea for a video because it is a common question, and depending on the ride, depending on how far you're going, how far from home you are and all that, it can be a totally different scenario. So if you look here, I've got 3 bags that I commonly use when I go on bike rides, and which one I use kind of depends on how these variables work out. Now, I particularly like the Topeak system because my bike doesn't have any braze on, so I don't have a rack on the back of my bike. So the Topeak Dynapack system works where you have an adapter on the back of your seat post where this slides into and locks into place. So I've got a small bag that has its own type of mount that sits underneath the saddle. Then I've got the 2 Dynapacks. So I've got a small, medium, and large. And so let's kind of start out with each one and I'll show you exactly how I would use it. Okay, so for the small bag, this is what I would use if I was just going out for a short ride. Typically, something, say 10 miles or less, where, I'm gonna be within walking distance of home if something really bad happened, but I'd have enough tools here that I could get, change a flat, fix a chain, or fix, things that come loose. So this is a nice system because it's got a tool pouch on one side. So in the tool pouch, I've got just a folding set of wrenches. So it's got Allen wrenches on one side, some Torx bits, some Phillips bits. I've got some tire levers, a patch kit, and then a chain brake tool. Then it also comes with a small wrench, just a 8mm and a 10mm. And then I throw a little chain link in here just in case I break a chain. So that's this side. And then on the other side is where I have room to put my CO2 canisters and little mini CO2 pump, my spare tire, and an extra canister. And so this is pretty much all I need for a nice short ride. And like I said, if I'm going within 10 miles or so, I'm not going to stop and have to lock my bike up or things like that. This is a really nice kit. Now the other thing I'll use this for is if I'm going mountain biking or something like that, where I'm also going to have a backpack. So I would keep all my tools in the bag under the saddle, and then I'd have other items in the backpack. And this is great for a short ride. But if I'm going to do something longer, or if I'm going to be farther away from home, like let's say I'm driving to a bike ride 20 miles away, I'm going to want to have more things with me. And that's when I would go to the medium system. So let me show you that next. Okay, so the medium-sized bag is the one I use the most. And this is a really versatile bag. I would use this for rides, anything over 10 miles, probably up to about 50 miles. Still, again, it depends on where I'm going and how close to home I am. If I were driving across to a park on the other side of the state, I would probably use one of my larger bags to have more stuff. But if I were doing, a local ride that had a sag wagon, I would use this for even up to 100 miles. So this is really perfect. The big difference between this and the small bag is more redundancy. So like in the small bag, I would have one tube and a patch kit. Just in case you replace the tube and get a pinch flat, you have a way to repair one of the tubes. With this bag, I could have a couple tubes, some extra patches. I have my CO2 pump and also a hand pump just in case. So let me show you what I've got inside. So in the main compartment, I've got a lock, some snacks, some goos, a headlight, all sorts of things, if I'm going to be out and it could get late. And then I've got the top section where I've got a spare tube. And with the tubes, I always like to wrap them in plastic so that they don't get, damaged by some of the other items in there. Here I've got a little wipe for, after you change a tire. A little multi-knife with pliers on it. A multi-tool like the other one, but this one has the chain brake built into it. But it's got, all the hex wrenches, Phillips, Torx, all that type of stuff. Some pins. So these are pins for the chain. So like in the other kit, I had an actual link. This one I could actually pop the chain apart and put a pin in, shortening it a little bit so I wouldn't be able to use the top ring anymore. Like I said before, I bring an extra pump. So this is a nice little hand pump. This is a real pain if you have to blow up the tire with it because it takes a lot of pumps to do it. But it does make it nice for things like, just getting a little bit of air in the tire so it'll fit around the rim easier to get it, put in place. So I like to have that pump. Then I also have another CO2 pump and a rain cover for the bag, insulator for the CO2. I have an adapter for a trailer. So on my back wheel, I don't have a quick release skewer on one of my bikes. So I take this with me so I can be able to take the back tire off. And this is the tire lever I use most time when I'm out. And it's a little bigger so it doesn't fit in the small pouch, but this is just a quick tire lever. And that's about it for this. So really nice bag, holds a lot of stuff. You can I can throw my wallet in here, keys, phone if I want, and have everything in here nice and zipped up. And this will cover me if I get a flat tire, if I break a chain, anything gets loose on the bike. I've pretty well covered it, and I can have multiple flats. Lots of times if I'm going, say I'm doing a 60, 70 mile ride, I will take 2 tubes with me and still have a patch kit and two styles of pumps. So it just sort of gets to the point where you need more and more redundancy the farther you're going. If you're, 300 miles from home and you're doing a 100-mile ride, you get 3 flat tires and you're in a lot of trouble. So it's always good to have as much kit as possible to get you home. Okay, so now let's look at the large bag and I'll explain to you what exactly it does. Okay, so this is my large bag. This is the type of thing I would take if I was going on a trip or doing like a century alone, where I really wanted as many tools and as much carrying capacity as possible. This bag can actually expand very much like a suitcase, where you just unzip this section here. And it has an accordion style expansion right in the middle, just like a traveling suitcase. Very seldom would I ever use that, but it is there if I needed to carry like some extra clothing or something like that, if it was like a fall ride. But this would be one of those things like if I were traveling to another state and wanted to do like a long rail trail or something like that, this is the type of bag I'd want to have. And it's basically going to be set up just like my medium style bag with a few additions. So I've got, again, a tool area in the top. And in here I would have, again, spare tube, a pump. I might have several CO2 canisters, a pocket knife, another CO2 canister, a CO2 pump, a patch kit. Here's another tube. Here's a boot repair for the inside of a tire if you get a tire all separated. Again, like to have a grease wipe or something like that. A rain cover, and then just like miscellaneous items. And here's my tire lever. And then in the bottom section, this is where it gets a little different. I would take an actual folding tire with me because I have had that happen where I've been on a long ride and I blew out the sidewall of the tire and was stuck. That's no fun. I also would take a medical kit with me, especially if I'm riding by myself. It's always good to have one of these, and if you're a long way from home, that's what you want. Then, like the necessities like a lock, some food, things like that. So this is a nice big bag, great for a long ride, way overkill for most of the things that I do. Like most of the rides that I do are 20 to 30 miles during the week. I might do a long ride on a weekend, but even then it's usually with a group. So if it's with a group, I'm gonna take the medium-sized bag because somebody else will have something if I do end up going through 3 tubes or have a chain problems. Someone else in the group will also have something if I end up going through all my supplies. But this is what I would use. So, and each ride is going to be a little different, knowing knowing how you're feeling that day. Maybe you just don't want to carry a bunch of stuff. It's going to be windy, so you kind of have to play it by ear and by feel too. But I just want to kind of show the options and explain how I would do things in various circumstances. So I hope this video has been useful for you and gives you some advice on how to do things. If you're a seasoned rider and you see something that I'm missing, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Really trying to work on building a community around some of the things that I do. And I'd like to have more people on my channel that can give advice. And I'm definitely not an expert in any of this stuff. I've just been doing this for a long time and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. So I'm always looking for advice on how to do things better and more efficiently. So I hope you enjoyed this content. If you'd like to see more of my content, hit subscribe. I like to do these types of videos pretty regularly and love to build up my channel. So I hope to see you on the next one.